Hey folks, welcome. My name's Becca, and I'm just one of many members here at Destiny Harvest Church. I'd love to start out by telling you a little bit about our church. First, Destiny Harvest is located at 1720 Belmont Avenue, right off of the security exit of 695, so it's super easy to get here. Also, this is a church about encountering God and discovering your destiny. Speaking of destiny, let's check out this latest message.
We're jumping today into part 4 of this series called It. And the idea of this series is that certain people have an it factor to their life. There is something that sets them apart from everybody else. And what we've been talking about is, in reality, the only thing that truly sets us apart is God's favor. Somebody say amen. Everything else is temporary. You know, they just celebrated Michael Jordan's 50th anniversary, and there were rumors about him making a comeback and all that foolishness. Somebody said that ain't gonna happen. He was the greatest. Right now it's LeBron James. Sorry, Kobe lovers, but how many people know how no matter how set apart you are, if it's based in the natural, it's temporary. Finances are temporary. They're great, but they're temporary. Titles are great, but they're temporary. The only thing that sets us apart is the favor of God, because God's favor is eternal. We must know that God is working on our behalf. Just like God was leading the children of Israel through the wilderness with a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, we need a picture in our mind that God is literally heading to my job as I go there, that he's headed to that class as I go there, that he's going home with me, that his favor rests on my life. We need to learn to recognize the favor of God. Last week we were talking about how the way we treat people sometimes causes us to forfeit the favor of God. It's so difficult to preach because every time I preach, I'll get off the platform and God will come to me and he'll say, that was a phenomenal message. Now let's test it out in your life. I went out last week right after church and we went out to a restaurant. Remember last week I was preaching how if you mistreat waitresses and waiters that you lose the favor of God? So we got to the restaurant. We had a reservation at 6 o'clock. I think we got seated at about 7:40. I think the bread came out at about 8:15. How many people knew I was remembering that message? And the whole table was making fun of me. You know, Pastor Steve, if you wild her out, you're going to lose the favor of God. You can't. I was sitting there like, okay, I don't want to wild her out, but I just want my biscuits. Like, God, I mean. But it's so important that we know the way we treat the children of God, God's creation, those that were made in his image, determines the favor of God on our life. If you don't remember any of this message, maybe this is your first Sunday, you missed all the other messages. Now you can grab them for free at the bookstore. There's no charge. Get a couple on your way out. You can watch them online. But if you don't remember anything from this series, remember this sentence: I am God's favorite. It is so important. I tell you, it will change your entire paradigm about life when you realize that I am the bride of Christ. I have special access to God, and he is moving on my behalf. We're looking today at the story of Gideon, and I call Gideon the reluctant revivalist. Gideon was the one person that no matter what God said, he had a reason why God could not use him for great things. God literally came to Gideon and he said, Gideon, my favor is on your life. And Gideon said, your favor can't be on my life. Look at my circumstance. Look at all that's going on. And Gideon, God said, no, Gideon, my favor is on your life. And Gideon said, you don't understand. I can't have your favor. I come from Manasseh. Manasseh is the lowest tribe of Israel, and I'm from the lowest family of the lowest tribe. How many people know the brother had issues? You know, so often when we come into atmospheres like this and we begin to hear that God wants to do great things in our lives, the first thing we do is we tell him why he can't. God, you know, that's a great message and it's uplifting and it's encouraging, but God, you don't understand. Here are my circumstances. And God is saying your circumstances do not determine my favor. Because as a follower of Christ, we live by faith and not by sight. And then we go and we tell God, well, forget the circumstances. Here's the mistakes I made. I'm from the tribe of Manasseh. I'm the lowest of the lowest. God, you can't use me. And God is trying to tell you, you don't realize it's not about you. My favor is on your life. I want to use you to bring glory to me. So as reluctant as Gideon was, there was something about Gideon that attracted the favor of God. And I just want to pull out 3 points. What is it that Gideon had that caused God to seek him? You know, I think a lot of times we seek God. Sometimes we cry for God. Sometimes we beg for God. Sometimes we try to bribe God. You know, if I go to church every single Sunday, God, will you please let her return my phone calls? Whatever it may be, we're just like, man. But here it is, Gideon wasn't seeking God. God was seeking Gideon. God was trying to find Gideon. There was something about Gideon that attracted the favor of God. I want to give you 3 things. The first thing is this. Gideon had an extreme pursuit. If you're taking notes, write that down. There's a little sermon guide, and you can write in there. If you're not taking notes, write that down. There's a little sermon guide you can write in there. Gideon had extreme pursuit. Gideon had a love for the presence of God. Now, let me set this up for you. Gideon was sitting there in a wine press. Now, before you get to, you know, vineyards and all that other kind of stuff, it must have been a beautiful place. No. A wine press was a pit. It was a deep pit cut into a stone, and Gideon was in a wine press, except he was not pressing wine. He was making for himself wheat and bread. What he was doing is he was hiding, terrified from the enemy, because the enemy would come in and take all their cattle, would take all their harvest. Gideon was hiding, and God came to him, and he says, Gideon, I'm with you. Get up and go do what I've called you to do. And Gideon said, God, if this is really you, show me a sign. Now, you have an imagination. Let me just give you a second and just think. If God asked for you to ask him any sign to prove that he was in your life, let's just do this by a show of hands. How many people would love for God to prove that he was in your life? Not just a good message, 2 people, 3 people, bless God. Everybody else is at the first service. Okay, come on now. I would love for God, not just a good message, not just a church goosebump, but I want to see evidence that God is for me. God says, anything you ask, I'll show you a sign. Now, just think about it for a second. What would you ask for? I don't know about you. Maybe I'm a little carnal, but I say, God, if you really want to prove to me that I have your favor, if a bucket of $1 million would just drop right here, God, I'm telling you, I would feel your glory. I would feel I would tithe on it. God, I would have proof that you were in my corner. You know, other times people says, God, if you're with us, make the sun stand still. Another time, and a man was hearing from God, God says, I'm going to move the sun back 10 paces so you know that I'm with you. But look what Gideon asked. This is the sign that Gideon asked for in Judges chapter 6, verse 18, this is what Gideon said. Gideon said, do not depart from here. I pray until I come to you and bring out my offering and set it before you. And he said, I will wait until you come back. This is what Gideon said. He said, this is the sign that I want, that God is with me. Can you hang out with me? Gideon said, God, you've brought this great decree over my life. You have all these plans, and this is what I need to know to have comfort that you're with me. I just want to be around you. Think about that. Gideon's greatest pursuit, his greatest desire when he could ask for anything, he asked for the presence of God. Listen to me carefully. God is attracted to people who love his presence. God is seeking and looks for people that loves to be around him. That's not even spiritual. That's just normal. How many people, you love to be around people who don't like to be around you? Anybody at all? You're hanging out, you're sitting there, they're texting. Look up, texting, they're checking their clock, they're checking Instagram, they're checking Twitter, they're taking phone calls. At some point, if you're like me, you're going to say, hey, if you have somewhere more important to be, you can just go. Don't let me keep your time or anything like that. If this is not where you want to be, go where you need to be. Nobody wants to be around somebody who does not want to be around them. Why do we expect that of God? God says, no. I love to be around people who love to be around me. Oftentimes I have people over at my house, and my friends, they're great people. I love them with the love of God. Sometimes that's all the love I have for them. But they will literally come over, and the party will always start at this time until. You guys know what until means? Until means until you get kicked out. Except my friends don't really understand that whole until deal, so they'll come over and we'll play games and we'll eat and, hang out and watch television, and it'll be a great time. And I remember about a year or so ago, I had this party and we were having a good time, and then it hit about 1 o'clock. And, it's church in the morning and all. Oh, I'm sorry. By the way, when we say party, we mean Taboo, Hawaiian Punch, and good movies. Some of y'all are pastor parties. I sure enough do. Party with Jesus. Anyway. People are like, oh my gosh, I need to find another church. But anyway, so it's like 1 in the morning, and I'm just like, oh, that was nice. I'll see you guys next time. Now, do you guys know what that means? Get out of my house. That's what that means. And it was probably about 8 people there at the time, and 2 left and 3 left. Now, everybody who hangs out at my house, now they're thinking, oh man, he wanted me to leave and I didn't leave. But anyway, people left, and then finally, about 2 in the morning, there were 2 people that were just sitting there. I was tired. I wanted them out of my house. They ate all my food. Ready to go. So they said, hey, let's watch a movie. I'm like, So I said, hey, well, you guys go ahead and watch the movie. I'm going to go upstairs and go to sleep. Lock up on your way out. How many people know I didn't really mean that? But what are you going to do? If they ain't leaving, they ain't leaving. So I get up and I give them just one more. And finally they were like, well, you know what? Maybe we'll head on out. I mean, it is late. It's like 2 in the morning, but it is late. And let's just like, goodness gracious. But here's the thing.